Welcome. I just want to say thank you so much for your patience while we work on this. Siobhan is not here, so that's the brain around all this thing. So, but you guys appreciate it. Appreciate you guys for bearing with us. Today, my name is Ben Kessie, and today I'll be presenting the psychology of selling and influence for realtors. Unlock the hidden triggers behind every yes. This is definitely a very tough business that we're in, and is when you're dealing with buyers and you're dealing with sellers, there's always going to be a challenge, right? And you don't want to feel like that agent that is you're always pushing. You don't want to be that agent, because that's how you start losing clients, because when they feel like they can't trust you, they're going to go with somebody else that they feel like they can trust. So definitely, this class is going to focus on how you can, obviously overcome all these challenges. So for the introduction, just imagine just walking into every appointment, feeling confidence, knowing exactly how to build the instant trust, how you can communicate with impact, and how you can guide your clients to make decisions that they feel like they're making the right decision, right? So a lot of this business, 80% is based on psychology, right? And 20% is just mechanics. So you definitely want to master the psychological parts, and how the business is run, and everything becomes easier. So you're not just learning new skills, you're going to be stepping in a new version of yourself, the influential, the trusted, the confident realtor who leads clients effortlessly and closes deals with integrity and ease. So just welcome to the psychology of selling and influence for realtors, and let's begin your transformation today. So we're going to be focusing on this series, the mindset of a top producer. You guys always wonder, how is this person doing this amount of deals? We're going to focus on that mindset. We're going to focus on the influence, the principles that sell homes, mastering conversions and connection. Conversations is important. Conversations and how you can connect with people is a big deal, and how you can handle objections. When somebody or a client or a seller or a buyer that you're dealing with, if they're saying no, how can you impact them? How can you influence them to make that decision for them to work with you? And how you can have a persuasive presentation and impact and high impact meetings, the psychology based on closing and technicals without pressure. Techniques without pressure. So the mindset of a top producers. Before clients build trust, your marketing, your scripts, your experience, they trust your energy. So you have to focus on obviously your energy, and the foundation of all influence, how you can influence them with confidence. You can have an authority presence, and also your mindset. That's what a lot of top agents and top producers have. So you definitely want to build those skill sets that you have, and that's how you can, and also everything comes in with experience. It comes over time. It comes with practice. It comes with learning, and it comes with hanging around with the right people and the right team to be able to build your confidence. So why people follow confidence agent? Human beings are definitely wired to follow people who appear certain. In real estate, confidence signals competence even before you speak. Even sometimes you may not know what you may not have the right answers for your clients, but with confidence, they can trust that you can get the right answers for them. Also competence, right? If you know what you're doing, if you have confidence, they know that you have competence in terms of how you speak. And also clients make decisions emotionally, right? Not just really logically. So you definitely want to make sure that you're building your confidence in this business, and everything is, like I said, is based on practice and experience. So let's say you are competing with a listing appointment, right? You have two different agents. They present the same CMA, right, to the seller. Everything else is the same. They presented the same comparable analysis to be able to determine what the value of the property is. But the other agent that always wins the deal is the agent that speaks with conviction, right? When you go on the appointments, right? And if the sellers always pick the ones that, based on interviews, the ones that they know that they can get the job done. Even though you presented the same listing presentation, listing materials, but it's the way that is how you look, how you dress, and how you smell, and how you portray yourself as a confidence agent. You can definitely get a listing appointment and a listing signed with a seller. If you go in there, you are not, dressed apart, and obviously, sometimes, if with confidence, you can even show up on an appointment late, and somebody else can show up an hour earlier, and you can get the business more than them. It's just basically your confidence. So it's extremely important, building your confidence in terms of not just having knowledge to be able to present to your clients. Is also, you definitely want to build that confidence. So the signs of first impression, right? So when you meet people, you have about 7 to 12 seconds to establish authority. Clients judge 3 things instantly, right? Number 1, do I trust you? Do you know what you're doing? Do you seem confident enough to lead me? And also key behaviors, right? Upright, posture, calm tone, controlled pace, warm impression, direct but relaxed eye contact. So these are certain things that you definitely want to practice, and you definitely want to have when you meet, a client for the first time, because, sometimes we may struggle with, having somebody work with us, and sometimes we may ask the question, why is this person not working with me? What is the difference between me and this other agent that the potential customer went with the other agent? And these are things that some things that we don't pay attention to, but when you meet people, they are able to, they pay attention to all these things before they make a decision that if they can trust you or if they're not, because this business is based on trust. So how you can identify shapes that helps with your production, right? So you never outperform your self-image. If you see yourself as just a new agent, you act like one. A local market authority, you speak differently. The advisor clients rely on, you lead with confidence. So if you always want to focus on your self-image, you may not know everything in this business, right? But obviously when it comes to how you portray yourself, and you can start the business, you can be a new agent, but with a lot of experience. I mean, I remember when I started my real estate career, I had no idea how to write a contract. I had no idea in terms of how to list an appointment, but I was able to master confidence. And whenever I walked and I meet with a customer or a client, they can trust me, right? It's just because a lot of times you don't know what the other person is thinking about when they see you, right? But that first impression, when you introduce yourself, how you greet and how you look and how you speak and what comes out of your mouth, the first few seconds is what they remember. They don't remember anything else in terms of how you interact with them. So you definitely want to make sure that your identity is sound, your image, what you drive makes a big difference in your business, because our business is based on perception, right? You can live somewhere in the basement, but whatever you drive and what you look like is what people are going to judge you based on that. And automatically they build trust with you and how you speak. And eventually they know that you are competent and they'll be able to work with you on that. So fear, hesitation, imposter syndrome, how to eliminate them, right? I mean, we all have fears, right? When you're going on a listing appointment, let's say you're dealing with a seller that has went through several different agents. It's a lot of you thinking about what is the difference between you and the other agent that seller fired, right? So you have all these fears in your mind when you're going on a listing appointment, right? So these are things that you can use and skills that you have to constantly work on to be able to build and limit your fear and build more confidence in yourself. So repetition, right? Skills, practice, reduce fear. Work on your listing presentation, right? Spend a lot of times on YouTube. And you can also practice, having all the scripts. Let's say, for example, coming in and how you even compose yourself, your posture when you go on listen appointment. So you have to consistently work on your appointments, work on the presentation, recreate your own. We have a lot of listen seller guide information that we share in the office. You can look at that seller guide and you can always improve it, add your own personal touch to it, and go as many listing appointments as much as you could. And that's how you can build on your confidence and be able to reduce your fear. Preparation, right? You have to know your scripts. You have to know the market. If you sit in a listing appointment and the seller is telling you that we can list our property for $1 million, and you know that the value of the property is not even based on that price point, you want to be able to have your data, be able to educate the seller, because when you picked on that listing, you put on the market, nobody's coming, right? So with your confidence, based on how often that you're practicing your presentations, you're going to be able to persuade the seller for them to understand that, hey, you know what? I'm making the wrong decision here, overpricing my house on the market. And, and also identity anchoring. You have to see yourself as the expert, right? If you don't believe that you're an expert and you don't believe in yourself in this business, then there's no way that people will want to work with you, right? Because they want to work with somebody else. So always spend a lot of times educating yourself in the market. Join groups that are in this office. They're always educating you in terms of the market, and also try to focus on emotional reframing, right? Nerves means I'm growing, right? So it's okay. Sometimes you may deal with a customer, you may have a little bit of nerves, but everything is all about improving, right? You want to be able to improve your brand, improve your business, improve your self-image, and this is how you can get to the next level. So these are things that you definitely want to focus on a daily basis, so you can be able to eliminate these fears and hesitation. And also, let's focus on the authority agent framework, right? Authority is built through clarity, evidence, leadership, and consistency, right? So on the clarity side, you know what the client should do and why, right? So, I mean, you definitely, want to be able to have that clarity when you're dealing with a client, right? So if you're dealing with, let's say, for example, a seller that wants to sell their property and also buy another property, and they need their proceeds from that sale to be able to buy, that is a very, very stressful process for that customer that you're dealing with, right? So you want to be able to always assure them with clarity and have a strategic plan in terms of what they should expect and what they should not expect. So when you're able to build clarity, you put the customer and the client at ease, that they can trust you, that we're going to put everything in your hands, and you're going to be able to help us sell and buy the next property. And also evidence, right? You got to know your market. You got to understand what's going on. Right now, we know that it is a buyer's market. So if you have a seller that's selling, you can protect your seller and say, hey, you know what? If you're afraid that when you sell your property and you don't know where you're going, we can have a home sale contingency, right? So if your house is not sold and then the one that you're buying, you're under contract, having that home sale contingency and knowing the market, you can educate people and they can make the move. That's a lot of people in this business. There's sellers that they're sitting on a lot of equity, right? They hate their home. This is a right time with this market that you can convince them that, hey, this is a time for you to sell. Yeah, the interest rate is higher than what you have, but with this amount of equity, you can leverage your investment and still be able to have an affordable payment for your mortgage. So you definitely want to be able to focus on going after a lot of sellers with equity, because this is a time that they can still, they can still control their equity and buy a property that they want, that they're going to be happy. They can eventually buy their dream home because because of the interest rate that they have, it's extremely low. So there's a lot of equity that have built up as well. In leadership, right? You want to look at yourself as a leader when you're in this business, because it's like I said, it's the mindset, right? If you don't see yourself as a leader, then obviously you can't get a buyer to trust you to work with you, right? They're not going to see you as the guide, the person that they're going to guide them through the process, right? And if you have doubts in yourself, then you're going to be losing business to the next person. People are always going to come to you to speak with you about real estate. By the time you realize you see them on social media, you're upset. Guess what? Because they went and bought with somebody else, or they went and list with somebody else. So you definitely want to see yourself. You may not know everything, right? And that's why we're in this business. We all consult with other people to get our experience going on. But you definitely want to show some kind of leadership and consistency, right? The way you look and the way you perceive yourself in this business is important, right? So you definitely want to always dress nice, because you don't know who you're going to meet out there. You may walk out there, you may meet a celebrity, right? And if you're walking around and you're not dressed properly, right, how would they trust that you're an agent that they want to work with? You also want to focus on follow-up, right? I just got this customer on the contract a few weeks ago. They've been trying to buy within the last 6 years, but I never stopped. Every year I followed up with them. I have all my clients in my CRM system. I have them on consistent follow-up, right? So just because they're not ready right now doesn't mean that they're not going to be ready tomorrow. But if you're not consistently in front of them, you're not having a conversation with them, you're not consistently educate them in the market, when they're ready to buy, they're going to go to Maher, or they're going to go to Ebenezer, because they've been in front of them, right? And it's proof, with this. If you're not following up with these customers and clients. And that's why a lot of times we get upset, right? We might help somebody buy a house, and then years later they may list a property on the market. You go on the market, you see that address and it's listed by another agent. Guess what? Because you never followed up. After the transaction is over, that was it. You never had a conversation with them again. You never did that periodically calls every 3 months. Hey, how you doing? How's the family going? You never call them to wish them a happy birthday, right? So these are things that you definitely want to have in control, because every client that you close, think about them as a potential referrals, right? Because that's not it. When you complete that transaction, you should be able to tap into them multiple referrals from them, right? And the only way you can do that is follow up. You may not have to call them sometimes, right? But you can put them on a follow up campaign, right? It can be a postcard. Every 3 months, they may receive a postcard. It can be a magazine. It can be any other source of systems that you use to be able to keep that client at the follow up. So when they're ready to make that move, they're gonna remember you. They're gonna think about you. So always remember that. Every time that you're dealing with these clients, always have that sense of authority, and you always want to follow those guidance without resistance. You want to position yourself as the expert, even if you're new, right? When I started doing real estate, my first transaction that I closed, my buyers never knew that was my first transaction, right? They never knew. Because I had mentors, right? I had people that were mentoring me throughout the whole process. And so when they asked me questions that I did not know, I say, you know what, I'll get back to you. And I was always able to get my mentor involved to help me. And they never knew that people like that the sense that when you have a mentor, when you have a mentor, people like that. They respect that. They see that you are someone that you are serious about your business, and don't feel like you don't have that confidence yet because you're new. But you definitely want to align yourself with someone that has experience, that's a leader, that can help you also become a leader, that they can help you in this business. So expert is not about years, right? It's about communication. You have people that you meet, they say, well, I've been doing this business for over 25 years. And you ask them, what was the last time you closed a deal? Some of them don't even close a deal. So the years doesn't mean that you are an expert, right? It's all about you. It's all about your experiences in the business and also about communication, right? So when people see that you over communicate, they see you as a trusted, agent, because they can trust you and they can work with you, even though they don't even know this is your first transaction. You also want to position yourself. Here's what the market is doing this week, right? You want to give the market update, on social media, wherever way you are able to keep in touch with your client. You want to educate them with stats for them to know what's going on. This is a very, very, complex and unpredictable market. So you want to be able to advise them what to do depending on what they are looking to do in this business. And also, it says, you can use your micro market knowledge, street level insight. Obviously you can pick a certain, neighborhood or, location where you specialize in, and you can obviously send information in terms of how you can reach out to your customers and your client. And also document learning, publicly. So market updates, reels, newsletter, all these things work, right? So, if you're not doing any of these things, you're not going out there letting people know that you are in this business, you are an expert, and that you're not a secret agent. People don't know that you're in this business. You're not marketing yourself. You're not reaching out to anybody. Then you're not going to be doing any sales. It's as simple as possible. You got to do these things. You got to put in the work. It's a lot of work. That's why, we have top agents, because they actually do these work. And I've been doing this business over 10 years, and I haven't heard anything new. Everything that I heard when I started has been the same thing that people are doing. The top agents are doing, making sure that you are in front of, your customers, you're in front of clients, letting people know what you're doing, educate them, and basically then you can get to the next level. And like I said, borrow authority from your brokerage team. If you're new in this business, join the team. It's all right. I mean, everybody is focusing on, commission split. See, when I started this business, I didn't care about splits. I was focusing on learning the business. Everybody wants to be their own boss. Everybody wants to own 50%, 100%, right? What's the 1%? What's the 1% of, if you own 1% of, Apple, do the math, right? That's a big ownership right there, right? So we are all focused on money, right? But we don't focus on education and growth. And you have to pay to play. And what that means is, if you're new, find an agent that's in their office, work with them, let them help you grow your business. Because this business is very, very challenging, especially when let's say you're on the buyer side and you do a home inspection, and then you're working with a first-time home buyer, and they read about a doorknob not even working. They're afraid. If you're new in this business, how can you educate this buyer about a doorknob? Guess what? You're not going to be able to deal with that challenge. And that's when the contract starts to terminate. Now the buyer will say, I don't want to buy anymore. Now, guess what? They said, well, I want to think about it. By the time you realize they are working with another agent, and the other agent sold them. So you definitely want to work with a team. You want to work with a mentor. If you're new, you definitely want to work with someone that can advise you and get you to the next level. And also, it says, you have to speak in frameworks. And we're going to talk about the 3 steps process exercise. So build your top producer identity statement, right? So example, right? I'm an agent who leads with calm, confidence, and clients trust me because I understand the market better than anyone. So I need someone to help me with this exercise. I am an agent who leads with confidence, and clients trust me because I understand the market better than anybody. I mean, look at this. This is a very good thing to practice. Wake up in the morning when you're new or even experienced. Look at yourself as the top agent. Look at yourself as the expert. You got to be able to have that confidence in yourself to know that you are the agent who leads with calm confidence, and client trusts me because I understand the market better than anyone else, right? When you say these things, it builds your confidence, right? It helps you become a different person, right? So when you want to get to a next level in your business, you want to get to a certain production. If you're doing the same thing that you were doing before, you can't get to that certain production, right? Because you haven't developed the habits, you haven't developed that confidence to get there. That's why most agents are always at the same status, because they're not building themselves to get to the next level. And these are things that you definitely want to focus on. Is say good things to yourself, and this is how you start to build your confidence, and then you can get to the next level. Another exercise, your 30 seconds position introduction, right? Structure, right? Who you help, what you specialize in, why clients choose you, your unique value. I mean, these things are important, right? You got to ask yourself these questions every day, right? What makes you better than the other agent, right? This business, is a lot of agents out there, right? And a lot of this year, a lot of people were complaining about the market. It was a great year. I've done better than last year, right? Obviously, it's not the market. It's about you, right? So you got to be able to look at yourself and say that, you know what, I got to work on myself. I got to work on my business. It doesn't matter where the market is going. It depends on where you're going and how you're going to work on the business. So you always want to structure yourself, and ask these questions, who you can help, what you specialize in. If you want to specialize in as a listing agent, build yourself as a listing agent. If you want to specialize as a buyer's agent, build yourself as a buyer's agent. If you want to work with investors, learn how to work with investors, right? Understand what is important for investors, understand how to get off the market properties. So you always want to identify yourself, right? When you're able to position yourself in a very good position, then that's when everybody starts reaching out to you. Then, you're going to start getting calls. Now you're not chasing the business because you've already built the business already for you. Example is, it says, I help buyers and sellers in Northern Virginia make clear, confidence real estate decision. Clients choose me because I provide data-backed guidance and stress-free process. So, you definitely want to, work on your 2026 goals, affirmation, before the end of the year. Don't wait till next year to work on that. We have a few more weeks to go. So you got to be able to, write these things on paper, focus, and then work on these things. How to influence principles that sells home, right? Influence is not manipulation. It's the ability to guide clients towards the decision they already want to make without pressure. These principles work because they align with human psychology, right? So when you have influence, it's not manipulation, right? You're not trying to manipulate. You want to help a buyer or a seller, right? If you have somebody that they need to really sell because they're going through a foreclosure, right? And they want to find a way to keep their house, but they know that they're not going to be able to afford it. You have to have the skill set enough to be able to help that person go through a psychological process, because they're at a defeated mindset, right? They don't know what to do. They're very negative, right? So when you're able to take that negative, thinking to a positive thinking, and you know that you're leading them to the right position, that's how you can be able to influence more people. You can be able to close more deals, because everything that you were telling them, you're actually helping them, you're actually guiding them. So it's definitely important to be able to practice and understand these principles. And it's just all about psychology. Reciprocity, why clients feel obligated to work with you. People naturally return value when they receive value, right? So you have to provide. Our service is we work for free. I always say that, we work for free, and then later on we get paid. So you want to focus on sellers, right? You can provide them with a free CMA. How much, if they reach out to you, how much my house is worth, right? Most people go to Zillow. You can educate them and say, hey, Zillow market is what we have. We're dealing with specifically your neighborhood. We're giving you the right information to determine that. So yeah, just offer free CMA. Market briefing, let them know where the market is going. Let them know why people are selling. You have to educate yourself with with information and also what's happening in the market. You have to know what's going on in the market. Showing route prepares in advance, right? You also want to have a strategic advice without asking for commitment, right? I helped this buyer, buy recently, and he's been working with a lot of agents. He said, Ben, I didn't feel like you were getting paid out of this sale. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, because you never pressured me. All you wanted to do was help me, right? If you working with someone, sometimes you may have to go pick up a buyer. I mean, I know a lot of people don't do that nowadays, but sometimes I do. Providing you get to spend time with the person while they're in your car. You get to know them a little bit more. You get to bond. So some clients, sometimes if you have to pick up a client because they don't have the means to, and they don't want to meet with them, and that's what I do sometimes when I speak with these clients. I ask them, do you want me to pick you up or you want to meet at the property? And most of them will say we want to meet you at the property. But the ones that always agree to sit, why not pick them up? And it also makes the showing goes really quickly because you can show multiple properties a lot quickly than obviously meeting them there, and then they may get lost, they may get hit in the traffic. That helps with your time as well. So yeah, just always want to offer advice and let people know that you want to help them, not about commission. Don't think about the money. A lot of people, think about the commission too much. The commission is going to come if you provide your service and you establish yourself as a professional that people can trust. You don't have to even worry about them working with you. And you got to give meaningful value before expecting loyalty. You have to be able to provide some value with people. I had a call yesterday with this person who's looking to rent. Never met her, right? And I explained to her I charge retainer fees, $300 to $500, depending on what it is, before we go out there to help the tenant lease, because leasing is a lot of work. So, when you're able to explain your value to them, and she said, well, Ben, it's really not that bad. $300 just to show us properties, and you're going to negotiate your commission to be paid by the landlord. We're good to go with that. So if you're able to have that strategic way of how you do your business and provide information to your clients or people that you are now going to, customers that they're going to be your client, when you have that set up, you're going to be very successful. So commitment and consistency, right? And that's just one of the things that we all struggle with, right? Having that commitment and also being consistency is really tough, right? Once clients say yes to something small, they follow through on bigger commitment. Example, ask, would morning or afternoon work better for you for your showing? I mean, when you schedule a showing, you always want to give options, right? Don't say, well, we can meet on Tuesday, right? You always want to ask them morning, afternoon. You give them option, right? And also you want to ask them to commit to the search criteria, right? You want to follow up. You want to communicate. You want to have a conversation with them, right? And also get micro yes, bigger yes later, right? So when you start to build that relationship with them, eventually it comes down to when you start writing an offer. when I started with this business, I used to struggle a lot with getting a buyers to sign contracts, right? Sometimes they'll call you and stay on the phone with you for hours, right? So what I do now is I do a summary. I send the offer, do a summary, and then text it to them, and then send a quick voice note. And right away, they review it and they sign right away, right? Because of confidence. But before, sometimes I can stay on the phone with them for like 2 hours. But based on over time, I was able to learn how to do it and be able for them to gain my trust, that they can work with me and they can see me that they can trust. So that's definitely important. So it's just all about, doing the same thing over and over, committing and having consistency to be able to build that, that trust with them. And social proof, right? Reviews are important. You definitely want people to know who you are. You want people to know you are the best. You are an expert in the business. Always ask for reviews. I mean, it's important. You want people to judge you, and before you start the process, you can explain to them that you are a review-based business. After throughout the whole process, you want them to review you. You want them to see your performance, right? So you can improve on your business. So after a transaction, always ask for reviews and make sure that they do it. And if you send a review link and they're not doing it, follow up with them. Stay on the phone with them, because when people are ready to do anything real estate related, let's say they are relocating, they will go online and look at local realtors, and if you don't have any reviews on there, they're gonna go with somebody else. I mean, I did a new construction 2 months ago. I never saw the buyer. It was a VA buyer. They were relocating from California, but a new construction, commission was like $10,000. Didn't do any work, because of my review. And she emailed me, and her email was very cute. She said, "Ben, I want to know if you are open to take on a new client." In the review, in the email. I mean, because of the way I've established myself on social media, she thinks that I'm so busy for her, because people want to work with busy people. She thinks I'm so busy for her. She was asking if I was open for her to be my new client. So that's what you need to do. You have to do all these things, and then in the future, you can see that everything that you've done is gonna come back to you as well.
They only see the first slide. I just want to let you know.
They're seeing the first slide?
They only see the first slide. That's it.
That's it?
Yeah, can you start?
Okay. Let's. I thought you were monitoring this. Share. Go to share. Up. Go to share right quick. Yeah. Oh, they only see the first slide.
Yeah, they only see the first slide. They just texted on the group here.
Oh.
Support on the social.
Okay, stop it right quick.
Stop share.
Yeah, stop sharing. See. Okay.
I think it's.
Um.
Is the meeting over?
No, I think the.
I don't even know.
Yeah, I think you need to.
Start and then share. Don't activate it first until we put it on there. Cancel the video. Okay, and audio too before we. So the whole time they weren't seeing anything.
Yeah,
Recording in progress.
Yes.
Oh,
That's
okay. Share. That's why we need Siobhan.
I know.
Oh, okay, that's good. Multiple share. I think I gotta do share screen. Okay.
Wait, what just happened? Is the training over?
No, the training is going on.
You guys were just seeing the first.
Do the audio right quick. Now the training is going on. We were just told that you guys weren't seeing any of the slides. You were just seeing the first slide.
yeah.
Yeah, sorry. I've just been listening in. I haven't been looking at my phone doing showings. but I noticed like 10 minutes ago, why is it still on the very first slide? So
Oh,
I asked the group chat, they're like, yeah, no, it's on the first slide.
I know, but
I'm sitting here thinking, why didn't anybody speak up?
oh man. So what do you guys see right now? You see any other?
You see the slides.
What slide? Are you seeing the slides now?
Now we can see the slides. We're on how your identity shapes your production.
Okay, control from here, please.
Guys,
All
you
right.
guys are real estate agents. You gotta be more vocal about this if you can't see the slides.
I think it was because I actually thought he was speaking from the first slide. I thought everything was from his head. I didn't realize it was from the slides. I think that's what other people thought too.
Oh,
I've been driving, so I didn't really pay attention to the slide. I was just listening.
oh, that means I'm a good. If I'm speaking for one slide, that means I'm really good. But anyway, let's get back to it. So we pass this. Keep going, please. We pass all this. We pass this exercise. Sorry, guys. We pass this. Yeah, we are on social proof. Oh, okay. All right. So everybody can see this, right?
Yes.
Oh, okay, okay. All right. Sorry, we got a little bit of editing to do. So, like this, like I said, the social proof is important. Like I said, guys, you're not a secret agent. Just let people know who you are. Let people know you're in this business. Add them on Instagram. Add them on Facebook. Snapchat, just Twitter. X. Just let people know that you are in the business. Let people review you. Ask for review. Sometimes what I do is at closing, when I come to closing with the buyers, I have the review link ready to go. Before they walk out, taking pictures, smiling, they can do the review right there. I mean, new constructions, they do that all the time. They let the buyers review them right there. So they can get the review out the way. You don't have to chase them for the review, right? Just be more creative. And if you build on these, systems, you're not going to struggle in this business for sure. So yeah, and it all comes down to, confidence, right? Confidence increases when client sees other people succeeding with you, right? People are nosy, man. When you do a closing, you take a photo, you do a video, or people do video testimonial and they talk about you. That's the confidence right there. They are building your business for you. They are, you have fans, right? People you have all these fans that are supporting you. So yeah, always focus on these things. Next slide, please. So scarcity, creating urgency without sounding pushy, right? Scarcity is value. We learned this in real estate, right? So example is this neighborhood has only 2 active listings right now, right? So this means that if you're working with a seller that they are dragging their feet and they want to sell, right? And you push that right there, right? What happens is it creates an urgency for the seller because they're not going to be competing with a lot of, inventory, right? So that means that if the inventory is low, right? Guess what? It's a seller's market. It helps with the seller if because of the demands will be more high. So that creates an urgency for the seller and say, hey, you know what? This is the right time for you to put your house on the market. You don't have any competition. Your neighborhood, you only have 2 properties on the market. So homes with this floor plan are selling in under 7 days. The seller already received 2 strong inquiries today. So you got to know how to, you got to know the market and you got to know how to talk to your clients and talk to sellers, talk to buyers. So when you're able to have these things locked in, because you did your research already, right? You went on a listing appointment and the seller is thinking about selling, but they're not sure. But you have to understand that sellers are driven by money. Regardless of how you say it, they want to brag to their friends and say, hey, my house sold for this. Sometimes they may not even need the money. They just want to that's just what it is. So if you understand that they're driven by money and you have an appointment when you walk in, you got to know what to say for them to want to work with you. And also if there's so many properties on the market, the inventory is high, that tells you that, hey, you got to know how to price it and you got to know how you can have that conversation with the seller, because right now is a time to focus on getting expired listings, because a lot of agents are failing. When the market started changing, they were still positioning themselves with the same selling strategies, right? Because they think they can put the house on the market and it can sell in in 5 days or 7 days. Those market are gone. Some certain properties you could, depending on the area, if they don't have a lot of inventory. But you got to really know the market. You got to know what you're doing, and you got to know how you can speak with them, right? And when you talk with them, that way it doesn't feel pushy because you're having a conversation with them based on facts, right? And facts is not pushy. But when you call them and say, hey, you have to sell, and you don't have anything to say to them, then they're gonna know that, wow, this person won't want to force me to sell because you didn't provide no value conversation. You don't have any facts to convince them to sell or persuade them to sell. So yeah, state reality is not pressure. So yeah, just keep that in mind. So having authority, it becomes instant credibility, right? So authority reduces friction. You want to establish authority early through data, systems, clear recommendations, professional presentation, and market specialization, right? You got to be able to be the guy that, you walk into an appointment, you have all your CRM, CMA ready to go. If after the appointment, they're ready to sign, either they sign the listing agreement on the spot, or the listing agreement is in their inbox ready to sign, and not waiting 2 weeks to get the listing agreement signed, especially when it's a lead that just came out of nowhere, right? Or you haven't worked with this seller before. If you work with them before, you have that relationship, so you can choose to sign the listing agreement whenever. So you want to have these systems in place. If you're working with buyers, you want to make sure that your exclusive right to represent is signed before you go out there and meet, because nowadays buyers are working with they're working with 5 agents at once, right? So if you don't educate them with the process and let them know that, hey, right now we have to have an agreement before we look at houses, and this is the reason why, and there are a lot of articles online, right? You can screenshot some articles that says that right now the buyer needs to sign an agreement before they go out there and look at properties. So if you're not having those conversations with them, because the reason why you're showing houses with these buyers without an agreement, because you don't have confidence, right? You haven't been practicing your craft. You definitely want to practice, be comfortable, and educate them so they can know that, what, this person, he's by the books, right? Because if they find out later that you didn't educate them and somebody else comes and they provide value to them, that's when they start working with other people. So you definitely want to keep that in mind. And recommendations, you got to be ready. I mean, if you're working with a seller, they don't have any money to fix up their property, you want to make sure that if you don't have the capital, you want to make sure that you work with contractors that can do the work and get paid at closing, right? Because if you don't have those systems in place, and if you have a bias, they want to get pre-approved. If you don't have the lender in place, you don't have a structural engineering in place, especially if the house is falling apart or something is going on with the integrity of the home. So you definitely want to have all those resources in place so they can look at you as the expert and the professional that they want to work with. You want to have answers to everything. And if you don't have answers to everything, you want to get them answers immediately as possible. And then your presentation. Like I said, always work on your buyer's presentation, work on your seller's presentation. The more you work on that, you go on listing appointment, it's going to go from 5 appointment, it will be 5 listing agreements signed. But if you're not working on your agreement, you go on 5 appointment, you get 0 signed. That's just what it is, because there are other agents like yourself that they are hungry and they're in the business. They want your business. So you got to do what you want to do. You want to set yourself up. You want to be looked at as the highest of the highest realtor in the business. Even if you don't have any experience, people will look at you in terms of how you carry yourself and based on your confidence that they're going to want to work with you. And market specialization. Yeah, if you want to pick a certain market, master that market, create some kind of niche, you can definitely do that as well. And, people follow agents who leads, not agent who asks what to do. Most agents that are selling more houses, they get more clients, right? They're more busier, right? But clients, sellers and buyers, they still work with them, right? The reason is because they know that they're going to get stuff done. Why would a customer work with an agent that that they're busy. People like success, they like leadership. So you definitely want to position yourself that way. Have that leadership role, and the rest is history. The next one, please. All right. So liking the trust accelerator. So clients say yes to agent they like and they feel connected with, right? How to increase liking: share interests, relatable stories, warm energy, authentic compliments, listening more than speaking, right? You have to, have some kind of things to talk about with a client. I mean, I had a listing appointment like 5 or 6 months ago. I went in there, I had my Rolex watch on, and that's all we talked about was watches. The seller went upstairs, he went and brought his collections, and then he showed me all his watches. We laughed, we had some wine, and then he signed the agreement, and then I left. so I mean, it's that's just what it is. People want to work with people that they have some shared interest with, that they like. You also talk about your success when you're dealing with buyers. I do that all the time. When I'm dealing with first time home buyer, I talk about the first time I bought my first house. How I was excited. I didn't know what to do. I was scared when I was at closing. I was nervous. So I understand what they're going through. So you always want to relate with people, right? When you're dealing with a challenge, and and they need some kind of emotional support and emotional guidance, you always want to relate with them, right? If you go on a listing appointment and you sold a house few doors down, and you tell the seller that, hey, I sold this house down the street. We sold it for a higher price point, a top dollar. I can do the same for you. I have all the skills. I have all the my marketing plan. I have all the connections in place. I can get your house sold. So, you definitely want to have all these things going on, and you want to smile. I mean, when you see people for the first time at a listing presentation, have a good smile. If you go in there and you frowning, and they don't want to work with you because you are not likable, right? You definitely want to be approachable when they see you. Imagine you meeting people for the first time that they want to look at houses, and you don't have an approachable welcome. Speak loud, speak clear, introduce yourself. You shake their hands. Let them know that you are human beings and you can understand them, you can work with them, and not just meet with them and not have any approachable moment and not smile. People want to feel welcome, and you definitely want to have those things in place. Sometimes if you want to have a gift, you can have a nice gift at your showing, something that has your brand on it. It can be a bottle of water. You can say, hey, thank you for coming. I have a water for you. Open houses, right? You definitely want to do all these branding and making sure that people can feel that they can work with you, and that's how you become likable. When you're likable, there's trust, and you can get to the next level. And yeah, don't speak more than you've been told. Listen to a lot of people. People just want to be listened to. You listen more, you speak less, and you speak with you speak properly, and you speak with guidance, right? You definitely don't want to be the one somebody want to sell their house. You just speak. You don't even ask them questions about why they're selling, right? You walk in the house, you got your marketing listing presentation down, and you saying this is what we're gonna do for you. You don't even know their motivation, right? Why they're selling. You want to know what their motivation, why they're selling. You want to get to know how they feel when they were living here, why they want to sell. So let them speak more, and then listen less, and then that's how you can get to the next level. So I have an exercise for you guys, right? How you can influence script creation workshop. Agent will create scripts using at least 3 influence principles and 1 conversion, right? So example, right? Most buyers I work with in this neighborhood found the best success when they move quickly because inventory is extremely tight, scarcity. So here's what I recommend based on today's market data authority, right? So you got to learn the scripts. There's so many different information out there nowadays that can give you scripts. If your business is focused on, for sale by owners, FSBO if you focus on Aspire listings, work on your scripts, and just practice, right? And that's how you can get to the next level. And also with the social proof, letting people know that this is what you can do, this is what you have done, and also educating them with the market, so for them to understand that, hey, you know what, inventory is really tight. If you want to sell, and as a buyer, if the buyer wants to be in this neighborhood, they got to present the offer really quickly because if they don't, there's going to be multiple offers. And then once they see that you know what you're doing, you can do. I mean, think about it. I mean, in the COVID market, we were able to advise our client to go up 100,000 over asking price, 200,000, 300,000, right? That was based on you having that confidence to be able to say, hey, you know what, this is what you need to do to be competitive, right? And to be able to get your offer accepted. And so when you're able to master all these things, work on your business, work on your confidence, you can provide a lot of good value for your client. And now you're not dealing with difficult clients, right? You're going to say, wow, my clients are so nice. Or they're so, it's not because they're so nice to you. It's because of the persona that you've established and the confidence that you've established, and also the fact that they can trust you, and based on the principle that you've learned over time. And that's why the transactions are a lot easier, because you've already put in the work already. So that's the result that you get. And then you have people that they deal with challenging clients because they haven't established that kind of confidence in themselves, right? There's always doubt, right? You're dealing with a client that is speaking to multiple agent at the same time while they're under contract with you. Why are they speaking with other agent? Because they don't have that trust with you, right? So if you establish that trust, they're not going to speak to anybody. Whatever voices or other people that they speak with, they're going to listen to you regardless because they trust you. Next. So mastering conversations and connection, right? Just remember, people decide within seconds if they trust you. Conversation is the most powerful tool to influence, connect, and lead clients, right? So you have to master your conversation. You have to learn how to connect with people, right? And it's okay. You got to build yourself. You got to build your self-image. And that's the only way that people will trust you. And if you don't master these conversations and connections, for example, if you get a call from a buyer that wants to buy a house, and you're not able to ask them, why are you buying? Where are you moving to? Where are you moving from? Are you a first-time home buyer? Is it your repeat? If you don't know how to have conversations with them, guess what? You're not going to be able to deliver the right value for that buyer or the seller or that investor. So you definitely want to master these things, and they don't change over time. If somebody wants to rent, right? You want to make sure that this renter tenant has a very good credit score, right? They have a very good income. They have to make 3 times more than the rent. They want to be able to live somewhere else. You want to make sure they have that security deposit and they have that one man. But if you get up and start showing them properties, and then they found something that they love, and they're getting ready to put in the applications, and you've discovered that they don't even qualify. They were evicted, like over a month ago, or they were getting evicted, and you don't ask all these questions through conversations, then you just wasted your time. So you got to keep in mind that you definitely want to master those conversations. And then when you're able to master those conversations, you can easily connect with buyers. I mean, some people call me, I've never met them before, never seen them, but I'm able to ask them in terms of, how much money do you have in the bank? But we're confident. They don't say, why are you asking me all these information? I'm uncomfortable. But it's based on conversations over time, and it's based on connection. When you ask them, they don't feel insulted or they don't feel uncomfortable to share, because that information that they're going to share with you, that's how you can help them get to the next level. So you definitely want to focus a lot on these skills and tasks, and that's how you can take your business to the next level. So building rapport in 90 seconds, right? Rapport is built through warm, shared interest, curiosity, matching energy, and respectful enthusiastic. I mean, you definitely want to establish that rapport as soon as possible, right? And that's building relationship, right? Relationship doesn't mean that it takes you time to build relationship with people, but just based on your confidence and how you can let this person know that you are gonna be the person that they can work with, and how you speak with them, and respectfully, you gotta be able to master all these skills that they don't feel insulted, right? I mean, some people, you may show up on a listing appointment, or you may show up on a buy showing agent. The buy shows up 30 minutes or an hour late, and then someone may catch an attitude. You should be happy that that buyer is coming. You welcome them nicely, and then don't even be upset, because there may be something that happens. That's why they showed up late. And then have that positive energy when they come, that they will feel uncomfortable, not because they don't want to work. They'll feel bad because they were late, and that's how you can close the sale. So you definitely want to keep all these things in mind when you meet with people, how you can build that relationship with them as quickly as possible. If not, then you definitely, they're gonna go with somebody else. And just like I said, clients must feel this agent understands me, right? People want to work with people that they understand. If they don't see that you understand them, they're gonna find somebody else that understand them. So, you definitely want to, have that self, image. You want to work on yourself. You want to basically, partner up with the right mentor that, if you knew that, don't, so you can get your business to the next level. And mirroring, right? Matching and pacing, techniques, right? Tone, speed, your vocabulary, your body language, your emotional energy. Like I said, I mean, people are always gonna judge you based on how you speak with them, your tone and your speed. So you definitely want to have that qualities, right? And if you don't, you can learn that over time, right? And the people don't feel, pressure, right? If they don't want to buy this house, and they call you and say, "Hey, I don't want to buy this home," how do you respond to them, right? You've showed them 100 homes, and finally they were thinking about buying this house, and I can understand the frustration, right? And they call you and say, "Hey, Ben, I don't think that we want to buy this house." How do you respond to that, right? That you focus on their criteria, right? Their wants, their needs. What is important for them, right? And then you talk to them and go through all that, conversations, and figure it out. Is it true that this house that they don't want to buy, does that make sense? And if everything matches what they want and what they need, and that's when you can persuade them and say, "Hey, you know what? This house matches everything that you were looking for. I understand you are afraid, you're nervous, but we have to make this. You have to make the right decision, and this house is the right decision for you to move forward with." And 9 out of 10, they're always gonna move forward with. But if how you respond and say, "Hey, I don't want to," and then you speak with them improperly, guess what? You're gonna kill the sale, because you didn't know how to have that tone with them. You didn't know how to communicate with them. Your body language, your emotional energy, your response was not, good. So you got to be able to control that side of you when you dealing with a client that is challenging, that they're afraid, they're scared. You got to know how to warm them up, so you can get them to move forward on a transaction that it will benefit them. And in the long run, guess what? I know you and most of us, we've had these clients before in the past, and then they'll call you and say, "Man, that was the best decision that we ever made." But at that moment, they were really nervous at that time. So you got to know how to handle all these obstacles. And the next one, like I said, tone, speed, and emotional rhythm. Your tone communicates more than words, right? So slow equals to confidence, fast, anxious, steady, trustworthy, warm is approachable, right? So these are things that we have to learn in sales. We have to learn and we have to master these things, right? So, and how we interact and how we have conversations with our client. Because if you don't have all these skills, or if you're not working on these things and you are lacking something when it comes to these things, then you want to start working on that, because going to 2026, if you don't have all these things worked on, somebody else is going to take your business. That's just plain and simple. So you definitely want to work on those things, and you want to get your business to the next level, and use emotional rhythm. Calm when they are nervous, energetic when they're excited, right? So you definitely want to have that understanding, right? Be able to understand where they're coming from, right? And if they said they don't want to move forward with the property, always have that conversation. Tell me why. What do you think? And it all comes down to your presentation, right? Before you take them out, you have to understand their wants and their needs. So when they don't want to move forward with a property, you can reassure them that, hey, this is what you're looking for. And the reason why you don't want to move forward, because number one, you're nervous, and which is normal. And then you can have a relatable experiences that you've had. It can be yourself. It can be, through your last transaction, or it can be an agent experience that or your mentor's experience, for them to feel comfortable to move forward with that transaction. So the psychology of the buyer's brain, right? And this is important to understand the buyer when you're dealing with the psychology of a buyer. Buyers are always asking this question: is it safe? Can I trust this? Is this right for me? Right? So think about it, right? When people are buying properties, you have to remember this is going to be the biggest financial decision that they have to make. It's not like they're buying some pair of shoes or some jewelry. They can easily return it within 30 days, right? When they buy that house, they're stuck with it. If they decide to sell it the next day, they're going to have to bring money to closing, because they haven't built equity yet. So constantly, you always want to be that person that you want to reduce the uncertainty and provide clarity, right? You want to be able to understand it. You want to be able to work with them, explain, right? Show them things about the property, give them education, right? Make sure that you let them know that, what, I work with the best of the best. I have the best home inspector. You don't have to worry about inspection. They're going to dig up everything that's going on with the property. We're going to make sure that we get you the right way. You want to get to know that person's history, right? Sometimes people bought properties before and they had a foundation issues. They probably had a basement leaking. So before you take somebody out to look at property, you want to make sure their history, their experiences. So those are things that I ask to buy. Is it your first house? Have you bought a house before? When's the last time you bought a home? What was it like living it when you sold it? Did you have any problems? So, and if they'll start talking, right, and start giving you information. So if you're showing a buyer property and then the HVAC system is old and it may be working, and that potentially they may walk in there and, a couple of years later it's going to break, and they don't have that financial capacity to be able to handle that, you let that buyer know that, hey, during the showing, you may love this house, but keep in mind, if we move forward, HVAC may be working. However, you got to budget yourself for a replacement. And this is based on having conversations with them, connecting with them, that they're going to be able to share with you what is going on within their past experiences. And that's how you will be able to help this buyer and make the transaction quickly as possible. So you definitely want to understand what buyers are thinking for. Buyers, and also they want to make sure they're getting a good deal. If they don't see that they're buying this property and they're going to make money in the future, then they want to get a deal. So if you're able to understand what buyers are thinking, and you are able to, solve all those problems, you're not going to have a lot of challenging buyers, unless they're just, someone that is unrealistic, which, sometimes we deal with unrealistic, buyers all the time. But just keep that in mind. Understand that this is obviously things that troubles buyers when you're working with them. And like I said, asking questions that unlock motivation. What's motivating you to move? What happens if you don't move? What does your ideal home feels like? What scares you about the process? Ask questions, right? Figure out what is going on with them on the psychological base, right? And that way you have answers for them. Because if you don't know what they're thinking, then guess what? You may take them out there and they'll stop showing up on showings, right? So you definitely want to work on these things, work on questions, and you can also improve these questions based on the specific or type of customers that you are dealing with, right? So always keep that in mind, and know that people are always nervous and they're afraid when they're buying. So you always want to keep that in mind so you can be better service them, and then you can help them reduce their fears, and then you can obviously make sure that the transaction is successful. And the yes ladder method, right? Create small yes and then becomes major yes, right? So examples, does this layout works for you, right? So when you are working with a buyer, don't just open up the house and then just let them stay and watch them, right? Have conversations about them, talk about the features on the property, ask them questions, figure out what is important for them, right? Don't just, obviously open doors, because you don't want to, what's the point of just open doors and that's it, right? I mean, I'm working with these buyers right now, and before they became buyers, they were rent tenants, right? And I think that there's some kind of system where right now they validate them, and they can go into these properties without agent, right? That's the most stupidest, because buyers, they're gonna look at multiple property. I mean, from interviewing this tenant that became a buyer, they've looked at over 60 rentals. They can't make a decision, right? Because they don't have somebody that will advise them and say, hey, what do you think about that? So that our role is significantly, right, important in the process. So you definitely want to have conversations with them, and that is building confidence, and is building connections, and is building trust, because they can trust to share more with you what they don't like, what they don't like, and what they're sharing with you. If it's ridiculous, you can also step in and say, hey, it's ridiculous, not like that, but you got to know how to say it. And and things like, do you like natural light? Some people like lights. Some people have religious reasons. They want their home to face a certain direction, in compass. So you definitely want to find out all these things before you take them out. If not, you looking at so many different houses, they get there and it's not facing the right compass. Now you just wasted your time, with that. And you got to ask them questions, like, can you imagine yourself living here? Because, it's not all about just the features of the home, right? Some people make decisions when they buy based on feelings, right? It's some things we don't know. They may walk into this house, they say, hey, well, I feel at home. So have these conversations with them, ask questions, figure out what they're looking for, find their vibe, and obviously it leads to yes, yes, yes. Now you submit an offer. Now we are ratifying. Next, please. Yeah, and how to handle objections using psychological, not force, right? So objections are not rejections; they are requests for clarity, right? So when people say no, it doesn't mean that they don't want to move forward, right? They just want you to, you definitely want to understand why they don't want to move forward, right? Because they said no. There's always a reason why. It's not because they don't like you, it's because they may have something going on. So you always, don't fear when people say no. Keep going. Find out what is the reason why they don't want to move forward with the transaction. They don't want to move forward, whatever you are helping them with. Ask questions, build that connections, so, and that's how you'll be able to get the answer right out of them. And then once you get the answer, you can guide them properly. And these are the reasons why people say no, It's number one is fear. There's a lot of fear when it's going on. There's a lot of uncertainties. People may be overwhelmed with misinformation, lack of trust, and also timing, right? So you just need to figure it out. What is the reason why they're saying no, right? So you got to get that out of them. And when you're able to establish the reason why they don't want to move forward with some kind of service, then you can have the right answers to them. Because if they say no, and that's it, you just stop calling, and that's it. I mean, I had this buyer I'm working with, we were right on the contract, and they decided to not move forward. And the reason why they didn't want to move forward, because I had to get them out, and it was very something personal to them, right? Because they had a death in their family, and he was very private But I was able to get it out of him. And then now we're getting back on the market because, right, it's been almost 6 months now they want to get back in the market and look again. So you just really, you got to figure out why people are saying no. It's not because of you. It's because they have something that they have to deal with. So when you're able to work with them, have conversations with them, connect with them, build that trust, they'll tell you everything. And that's how, when they tell you everything, that's better for you because now you can guide them properly. So 4 types of objections, right? Timing, price, financial, trust, competencies, process, and overwhelm. So these are things that you want to remember when you're dealing with a buyer or a seller or an investor that's saying no. Focus on figuring out what is going on with them. And if it's something that is dealing with timing, keep following up with them, right? Don't just forget about them, right? Have that, if it's months, have that bi-weekly calls, or 1 month call. Let them know that you're still around and you still care. And every time you speak with them, have something to talk with them about, not just calling and checking up. When you call, you want to provide some kind of value, right? If that person is into sport or something like that, and you can get a ticket and say, hey, I was calling you and I have a ticket for you for this game. If that person is into anything else and it's something that you can afford, it's always good to, give, right? And that's how they will stay with you. And if it's price and financial, then find out a strategic way, how you can structure them. When, find them a lower price point, right? If they need, down payment assistance, find them programs that they can help them, buy. And trust and competency, right? So these things are things that you have to build overall with your customers, right? And is like I said, is based on your self-image. You have to focus on your craft. You have to work on your self-image, build your confidence through practice over and over, and work with a mentor, somebody that can help you get to the next level. And if you're able to, overcome that, then the customer or the client is going to work with you. And then the process can be overwhelming, right? Try to simplify things over, as much as you can, right? Focus on how you can make things a lot easier for people and let them know that, hey, you got this covered, right? Don't worry about it. If you're selling your house and you need about $100,000 to do a repair, they don't have that money, right? Find a contractor that can, do the work and they can pay them when the house is sold. So when you show up at that listing appointment, you have the contractor that's ready to go. They like the contractor. Now they feel more comfortable to sell, right? And that's how, you can have the listing signed. You get the property fixed up. Now it's sold. So right now you kind of eliminated the overwhelming and then the process because they trust that, they don't have to worry about money right now because you have this covered and because you have the process, lined up and ready to go. And then your identity, right? Address the emotional reason and then provide, clarity. There's always, our business is a problem solving, right? We have to solve problems. So if you're able to find out what the problem is from your customers and your client, you'll be able to solve the problem. And if you can't solve the problem, team up with somebody else that can help you solve that problem. And that's how, you get to the next level. So reframing from objections with empathy, right? So number 1, acknowledge, validate, reframe, and guide. You got to acknowledge what the issue is, right? You have to figure it out what is going on with them. You have to validate that, and also you have to reframe it, structure what that issue is, and then guide. Then that's how you get them from plan A to plan B or whatever process that you're working with them in. You can be able to provide more clarity and confidence, and that's how they work with you. And if you're dealing with a seller, you have the property on the market, it can't sell. Provide them with market analysis. Talk to other agents, right? I do that all the time. If I'm not getting offers and I have other agents, I reach out to other agents for feedback, right? What is going on? Are you getting more traffic and you getting more showings or not? And I also provide my client with, weekly or bi-weekly market Snapchat, right? I get that. Sometimes I get the information from Zillow, homes.com. I also have other databases that I get information from. And then now you can have an educated conversation with them and say, hey, this is the time for you to drop your price because you have data in hand. Now, guess what? They're going to listen to you, and because you are providing something of a value. But if you're calling and you're telling them to drop the price and you don't have anything to support your data, they're going to think that you suck. Excuse my language, but that's just what it is. So always make sure that you have information that you can provide to them and they can make a decision and they can reduce the price, and then you can get a buyer and you can get it sold, because the more it sits on the market, guess what? They're talking to other agent. And guess what? By the time you realize, oh, I want to terminate our agreement. You didn't see that coming, right? Because you didn't do your job. You didn't do your due diligence. You weren't having conversations with them. So always keep in mind that you got to figure out what is going on with your clients and how you can help them, acknowledge their problem, validate that, reframe, and guess what? You can guide them. So the agree, align, advise method, right? So agree, total understand, right? Align. Most clients feel the same way. Advice. Here's what's typically works best. And then that's how you create your psychological safety, right? We do this all the time when we work on our client, but we don't even recognize that we do this, right? And if you're not doing these 3 things, then obviously you're having a lot of challenges with getting your clients to work with you, right? Because you haven't built that skills to be able to, work with people, for them to, understand, for you to understand them, for them to understand you, that they can work with you. So you definitely want to focus on these 3 things, and it's practice. It doesn't happen overnight, right? You got to work on your image, and you got to make sure that you're doing things on a daily basis, and that's how you can obviously become a top producer. And emotional first, logic second response, right? Fear blocks logic, right? And it does. When you're afraid, guess what? You can't think properly. You can't think reasonably, right? So you have to address the emotion first, and then you give facts, right? So you definitely want to know what you're doing when you're working with these clients, and then if you don't know how to recognize and recognize their fears, and you're not having conversations with them, then you're not going to be able to help with them. So you got to get to the bottom line, figuring out what is going on and how you can provide guidance, and then you can give them facts as well. And then closing the hesitation gap, right? Hesitation, when people are hesitating, it's just a lack of clarity, right? You haven't provided any clarity with them for them to make a decision. And if they're hesitation and if it's not lack of clarity, then obviously they are unrealistic, which there's nothing you can do about that when people are unrealistic. So you can provide micro clarity, next steps, options, timeline, safety net, right? So if you're dealing with a seller that wants to sell their property because they have to move and buy another property, number one is what they're looking for, right? They want to see how much they're going to make from the sale, right? So you have to do a seller net sheet, providing information in terms of what their equity is, commission, taxes, and what they're going to walk away with. And also explain the process of buying, right? Having systems in place to guide them, for them to make that step to feel comfortable and say, well, if I'm selling, then that means I'm not going to be on the street, because I'm selling and I'm moving right to my house. So you have to have those strategic, tools in place to be able to help them and provide clarity and options, right? They may decide not that they want to sell. Sometimes you can give them options with, home equity line of credit. If you want to keep your property as a rental, you can, do a home equity line of credit. That way, you'll be able to keep your property as a rental property and still have cash to be able to go towards your down payment and buy. So always have options, or they can do a bridge loans, right? There's so many different options out there where you can make them feel comfortable. And once they see that you have knowledge and you can deliver, they will work with you at the same time. But if you don't know what you're doing, or if you don't have a mentor that is helping you close this sale, then somebody else is going to take that. And then understand their timeline, right? Because if somebody has a lease that expires in February, right? And they're buyers, they want to buy, if you pre-approve them, then you should be taking them out and looking at properties right now, right? Because if you're able to close them in January, their lease is not gonna, their first mortgage payment is not gonna be due until March, right? So it gives them that sense of security and say, hey, I'm not rushing, right? Even if my rent is expiring in February, I'll be able to, buy this house and I can move in a lot sooner that I don't have to worry about rushing, right? So you gotta have options and you gotta know what you're doing to be able to give these clients clarity and trust to be able to work with you. And safety nets is also is important. And clarity creates commitment, right? And people see that once they understand what they're doing, they have a clear picture of where the processes is going. Now they can commit to the selling or they can commit to the buying or investing. But if there's no clarity, then they're not going to want to move forward with that. They're going to keep wandering around, or they're going to end up eventually working with somebody else that will provide that clarity for them. And then that person will get the commitment with them, and then they will move forward with that. So examples and counter, right? We want to wait, emphasize, future pace, and give data, right? So you got people that want to wait. They'll say we're not ready. Clarify what? Ready means create a plan. Figuring out why they're not ready. Get answers from them, right? We're talking to another agent. Respect, differentiate, and then add unique value, right? Don't be afraid for competition, right? A lot of agents are afraid to ask, are you working with somebody? Always, figure it out. When you go on a listing appointment, ask the seller, who are you interviewing? Who are you working with? Who have you seen, right? So you can provide a better, more unique value than the other agent. So always keep that in mind, and that's always keep that in mind, and create on solutions and plans so you'll be able to provide clarity to your client or your customer. Persuasive presentation and high impact meetings. Your presentation is your silent salesperson. When structured correctly, clients choose you before you even act, right? I mean, this business, it's all about obviously your presentation, right? How you present yourself. First impression, when people see you, what they're thinking about when they see you, how you look, how you portray yourself, and definitely how you structure yourself and how you run your business, your processes in place, right? All those things matter, right? What you wear, how you smell, what you drive, everything matters, right? In terms of their decision. And if they, and that's how it is, that people just wired that way, that they're easily going to judge you. So if they see you and you have your GQ going on, you're dressed nicely, it really impacts, the sale, and what you wear and how you smell. The conversation can even be about your shoes. You can have conversations about your shoes or your watches or what you're wearing, and they're gonna want to work with you because they can relate to you. But if you go to a listing appointment and your hair is not done, your clothes are not ironed properly, your shoes are dirty, and your car is beat up, what you drive, they're gonna want to work with somebody, especially if it's a 1.2 or $2 million property, and you pull up, with a really that's just how it is. It sucks, but you probably going to be the best person to service them and help them. But they're going to make decisions based on perception and what you look like and the first impression and then the vibe that they get from you. So you definitely want to keep that in mind. And all these things helps you with how you can persuade buyers and sellers, and you can have a high impact meetings as well. Structuring a persuasive listing appointment, right? So key components. Market data, your strategy, your timeline, your marketing plan, price, position, your unique value, closing the meeting confidently. You got to work on your presentation. Spend some time, twice a week, work on your marketing, work on your buyer's presentation, work on your listing presentation, go on, mastermind, classes, take more destination classes. You definitely want to work on your business, work on yourself. So you're always constantly updating, yourself and in your business. So when you're able to do all that, it reflects on yourself, right? So because when you're dealing with customers, they know that you are a definitely expert agent, and then you know what you're doing. And people can smell and they can see the real from the fake, right? And if you are the real, they will see it. If you're the real deal, they'll work with you. If you're not the real deal, they're not going to work with you. And deliver information with authority, right? Authority is not loud, it's clear, structured, and confidence, right? Use framework like, here's what we will do. Authority, here's what we're going to do. The data shows that. My recommendation is this. Be bold. When you bold and you use, certain framework and how you command authority, automatically people listen to you, right? If there's hesitation, you don't know where you're going, then that's when they'll start wondering if this person is going to be the right candidate for him to help me sell my house, or we have to interview and speak to other people. So yeah, definitely work on your craft and work on how you can command authority and without feeling pushy, and they'll feel that you're going to be the person to guide them. Visual persuasion and storytelling, right? Stories overcome resistance, right? Examples will be, I help a seller in your exact situation. Let them know that you have experience. Talk about your success. It's okay. It's not bragging. You know what you're doing. Always be able to be open to share what you have done in the same situation and what value you can provide to them and what happened during your experience. You can have before and after photos, right? When you do the listing presentation, you can show them the type of photography that you're using, people that you're working with, in your team, marketing results, right? Show case studies, provide as many information much as possible, but provide them with value to let them know that you are going to be the right person to help them to buy or sell their property when it's the right time to go. How to influence luxury clients, right? If you have a luxury client that you're working with, precision, right? High-end communication, time, respect, direct presentation, concierge-style solution, prestige branding, speak in elevated tone, simplicity, discretion, efficiency, right? These are all things that you have to practice over time. It's you got to really work on that. You get whatever you put in is what you get back out. If you're not working on your craft, and you're not working on your confidence, and you're not working on your scripts, and these are things that people see and they'll work with you. And also present high. When you present high, show value, and you reveal your recommended price, when you're working with sellers. And anchoring frames expectation. It's these are things that you definitely want to do. You want to show the value, your value proposition. You definitely want to reveal your recommendation prices. Because if not, then the seller will choose the price for you. You want to be able to give them price range, right, based on the data market. If not, then they're gonna overlist the property, and it's not gonna sell. It's gonna stay on the market. And how to close without sounding, salesy, right? You don't want to sound pushy. You don't want to sound like you need a commission. You that's something that you definitely want to sound like. So, things that you can use is, would you like to start the, especially if a seller, you're working with a seller, you just ask them if they want to, when do they want to, take the photos, or you want to send, the sign, the coming soon sign. And that's a beautiful way you can get listings. I mean, coming soon, marketing is a very driving force to get more listings. Let them know that you have a pre-marketing plan, you have a active marketing plan, and then a post-marketing plan, right? You just have to show them that you are different from your other competitors as well. And things like, shall we get your home positioned for the market now or after the weekend? It's not pushy. It's definitely effective, and then it's natural, right? You definitely want to ask questions and not feel that you are pushing them to sell. You're working with them because you know what you're doing. And things without feeling pressure. Closing is not an event; it is the natural conclusion of clarity, right? Confidence and leadership. Like I said, if you want to, sell more real estate next year, 2026, you have to work on these etiquettes. You have to work on these skills, these manners, how you communicate with sellers. Because what if you get all these leads, right? And you're not closing because you're doing the wrong things, right? You don't have all these things already built up, established already. So when you work on these things, you work on your techniques, and people don't feel pressure, they're gonna want to work with you because you know what you're doing. So like I said, closing is not an event; it is a natural conclusion of clarity. You provided clarity, confidence, and leadership, right? So hopefully you guys were able to learn some fundamentals about how you can work with yourself, be a top agent rather than pushing and people feeling that they're pressure, they can't trust you. You are overly aggressive. You're not providing any value. You just focusing on commission. And yeah, so the assumption close if the decision is already made. Example, let's schedule your buyer consultation. Would tomorrow or Thursday work for you? So these are things that you have to practice when you're closing, right? To close a customer, for them to work with you. You want to show them that you have a value proposition as well. And the future pacing close, right? Have clients imagine the desired outcome. Example, when you are moved into your new home next month, what will be the first thing you will do, right? You're closing with them, right? You are getting them into the future, right? So if they're if they're hesitating or there's bias remorse or something like that, at the end they're stressed because it's a very, very complicated process. Guess what? When you start having these conversations with them, what kind of curtain are you going to put in your home? Are you going to put a different light fixtures? All these things you're closing the deal, right? Because you're having them understand and build some kind of future in their new home, and they don't feel like it's over. They're overwhelmed. It's too much for them. For them to feel like they didn't make the wrong decision, that they make the right decision. By keeping in touch with them and having those conversations and with them. And the soft close for sensitive clients, right? Gentle but low pressure. How you feeling about the next step? Very easy. You can ask them, how you feeling about this process? How you feeling about the next step? They're going to open up to you. They're going to have conversations with you. They're going to let you know what their fears are, and they're going to let you know what they are dealing with. And that's how you can decide and you can know what you need to do to guide them to the next step and how you can help them. And then the option close, right? Give them two options, before leading forward. Would you prefer we write the offer at 3% EMD or 5% EMD? Whatever, always, have options when you're having a conversation with people. Let them feel that they're involved in the process, right? Don't be the pushy sales agent. We're going to offer this. We're going to offer that. What do you think about this? And if, ask them for their opinion, because they are the ones that's buying the home. They are the ones that's selling. So once you get their opinion, you can direct them to the right, their desire and the right decision, in terms of if they have to buy or if they have to sell. So always, ask questions, use options, and let them know that they are involved, and let them know that you are working with them for their best interests. And then the breakthrough close for indecisive buyers, right? Clarify priorities, right? Remove noise. They're talking to too many people. They talk to their uncle that bought a house 10 years ago. That's a long time. It's a different market. Remove the noise. Reset decisions, right? They're talking to other people that they're saying that their interest rate is too high. People are saying that, well, when I bought my house, my interest rate is 3%. They're thinking that the market rate is 3%. So just you have to reset their decisions. Remove the noise, and provide data, provide value, provide information. So, and also provide clarity. Once you do all that, you can have a smooth and successful transaction. And things like example, let's get clear. What matters most to you? Location, budget, or timing? Figure out all these information from the client before you take them out there and start looking. That's the only way you can definitely stir a buyer to the right decision. Because if you're not asking questions and you don't have any conversation with them, then obviously you're just you're taking them out. You looked at so many different properties, they're not buying. Guess what? Now their job moved them to another location. You spend all your time, but this buyer didn't move forward because you never asked. So conversations are definitely important, and then that's how you build confidence, and you can direct them to the right position. Psychology of follow-up, right? Follow-up is important. Remember, 3 to 12 months follow-up, right? People that want to buy when they are ready, stay relevant, right? So use the base follow-up, market snapshot, thought of you listing, quick check-ins, soft touches. Consistency equals to conversation, So remember that you got to master your follow-up system. I mean, a lot of top agents, they're not doing a lot of business because they have the secrets. There's no secrets to this business. You got to focus on the basics, and you got to follow up. Following up, being consistent. That's how you're able to work with clients. And then you have other buyers that you spoke to in the beginning of the year, and some of them said we're going to buy next year. You haven't spoken to them this whole year after they said they're going to buy next year. What if they're speaking with somebody else? So you got to know how to follow up with them, make sure that they know about you, that you're in this business, and you can add them on all your social media platform, right? They can see you. Send them information. It can be, sometimes you can have conversation with them through articles. It can be not really real estate related, right? Don't be boring. Don't make it all about real estate. It can be about anything that they like, any interests that they like. So always, make sure that you're being consistent, and then that way you start to convert this client, and now you have a closing. And this ends my my presentation. And thank you guys so much for your attention, and thank you for coming. I know we had a little bit of technology issues, but yeah, thank you for coming.